In just a few days, I'm going to go back inside of the store that I'm in front of, which is a nonprofit organization that has an earned income strategy to finding proceeds, revenues to fund their mission. In a few days, I'm going to go inside. I'm going to meet a manager that may have time on their hands or who can take an appointment with me. And I'm going to make them aware that I've got an academic process that I'm leading, coaching nonprofit leaders in how to do self-directed learning. So this is what I would do with the executive interview if I were in your shoes. It would go something like this. Using my PACE process, programming, assigning, capitalizing, and evaluating, using those 4 big managerial buckets, I would go into a nonprofit organization and I would ask the manager these kinds of questions. If you look at the document which is attached to this video, 101 questions to lead by, I would select several leadership questions, like what do you know of the history? How have things changed since the founding of the organization? What are some of the leadership challenges that you always have to tend to? That would be that first category. The P box, however, asks just a few basic questions. What needs are we uniquely qualified to meet? Would be a great one. What keeps us up at night? What makes us pound the table? What makes us weep? What do we think about when we're shaving whatever we shave in the morning or as we're driving to work? Those are the kind of purpose and programming questions that would come into play that would help you get interview insight on the P box, the programming box. Those priorities that this organization focuses on all the time. The A box is assigning. If it's not assigned to someone, we can't know that it's ever going to get done. As the old limerick says, if 2 people are tasked with feeding a horse, that horse will soon die. Think about it. So if it's important, it'll work its way down into the job descriptions and the performance reviews of someone. A few questions that you might use to get that bucket filled would be something like who reports to who? Are the right people in the right slots? If you have square holes and round pegs, that could be a problem, or round holes and square pegs, that can be a problem. So are the right people in the right places, and who needs to know what whenever a decision has been distributed? And how do you get that information distributed to keep cohesion in the organization? That would be a few of the A box questions. How do you assign things to people? The C box, capitalization or cash or costing, whichever one helps you make it most memorable, it asks the questions, what does it cost to do what we're trying to do? What do we need to do what we need to do? It may be cash, it may be computers, it may be vans, it may be croissants. Who knows what our various efforts might be. But we got to throw stuff at the mission, resources that get orchestrated by the people who are assigned it to achieve the program. So a couple of C box questions would be, what do we need to get the job done? Can we afford it? And then the question I love most, because we seldom can afford it, it is, well, how then can we afford it? And one of the things I like about this organization is someone answered that question with, well, what if we took donations and repackaged them, cleaned them up, and sent them back out into the world again, into a marketplace that needs used items of a reliable quality? This is an earned income strategy that the founders or the organizational leaders of this organization came up with to bring revenue into their place. Last is the E box. The E box connects to the P box. I think of it more circularly because it asks the do we count question. And if we count, what is it that we're counting? What is it that we're measuring in order to know that we count? So a few questions for the E box are questions like, what are we tracking? What do we need to know to learn from our past actions? What's another E-box question off the top of my head? Look on the page there. I'm very conscious of the traffic space that I'm inside of. But I would simply think of these as 4 managerial priorities, like 4 buckets that you've got to fill through that interview. Select some of the questions. Don't ask all of them. There's 101 of them that I've provided for you. But select just a few of those questions that would serve you. Now, the thing I want you to be conscious of as you do your assignment is that you don't do the assignment to achieve something that you think the professor wants. I want you to choose a nonprofit organization from which you can learn. If you're running a community organization that has after-school programs, go to an organization that's really good at the after-school programs. If you're working on an organization that deals with disaster relief, go to the Red Cross and learn from them. Make a new friend, an executive friend, a managerial friend in an organization in your town, and begin the fellowship of learning together. Now, around all of these buckets, at the center of all of this, is something called a promise. Now, you've heard me talk about promises before. You've heard me talk about high fidelity organizations that make a promise and they organize and arrange everything to fulfill that promise. This is what I want you to become curious about. How do people sequence their fulfillment system to ensure that the promise is kept every time, in every moment of truth, for every client, every stakeholder who touches that brand? I hope this gives you some sense of what you might do to develop an executive interview. These are my suggestions. You let your own curiosity rise and demonstrate your own capacity for self-directed learning. That'll get us moving into the executive interview. I'll meet you in the classroom.